Now, if we look at our image of our bird, we have a whole lot of these little individual overlapping feathers in here. Now, it's going to be quite difficult for us to create all these little bits of tone using the rubber. So we're going to need to just use dark lines to create those tones. So the first thing we want to do is just figure out kind of where they are. There's a few larger overlapping ones at the top, like that. And then they start to come down. And they go like that. So they sort of overlap there and they come back. And the only way to do this really is to just individually draw each little piece. I don't think you need to count the number of overlapping feathers here. You just need to have the sense that they are overlapping and that they are, there's a darker line where it's creating the edge. Now where you can, you just want to have a little shadow underneath each piece. So there's a small shadow here. And this piece is overlapping up here. So there's a small shadow there. And it's actually probably more important at this stage to be able to describe the tone and the contrast between each layer than it is to get it exactly right, because it's a bit finer than I think we can do. But if you do it this way, you can get the real sense of these overlapping feathers. And as they go underneath this area of feathers, they also have some tone. So we just need to just add a little bit of tone like that. You can just smudge it a tiny bit, don't want too much. And then there's some quite dark area right underneath here. And a few pieces of feather that just kind of overlap that whole space. I just had one too many feathers going on there. All right, that's looking really good. Now we can work our way over here as well. And on these parts here, there are some different parts of these feathers. So we have the outline of the feather, but we also have a little line for the middle of the feather. And we're just going to draw those lines on as a sharp detail, and then try and just add a bit more tone in there. So if we start with our middle one here, there's a line that comes from here all the way down here. Same with this one. You just have to try and keep your hands steady when you're doing this. And then there, and it's a bit hard to see on that one. Okay, now there's another one up here. And then it's quite difficult to see on those other ones because they're sort of overlapping. So what we'll do now is we'll just work our way through these lines and try and just define them a little bit more. Again, we don't want to be outlining everything, but there is an edge here between each of these feathers, and so yeah, we probably want to just rub out a little bit of the thick outline at the end, because if you look back to the picture, they're not really thick outlines, they're just very thin defined edges. Like so. Cool. Now let's just work back over these areas of tone and just see if we need to add in some sort of darker areas. So just in these two bumps there's a bit more tone. There's definitely some more contrast between this feather and this feather. Contrast means how much does something stand out against something else. So when it's high contrast, that means it stands out a lot against something beside it. So black and white would be really high contrast. And high contrast items, or high contrast parts of the drawing, tend to draw our eye into them. So we want to just think a little bit about how, which part of the drawing we want to be looking at, or you want the viewer to look at. If you do need to go back and add some more tone in, it's a good idea to just jump back to the the 2B pencil, because it's easier to get a bit of a smoother tone. Sometimes the HB can give you quite a liney tone with lines in it. Just trying to get a sense of that those white tips on the end of the feathers. And that is quite a pointed feather too. All right, so I'm happy with how that's looking so far. I just want to do a little bit of work now on some of the features. And the reason I left these for last is I think these are really important, especially since they're darker pieces, and because they really are the parts of the bird that draw your eye in. So I'm thinking about the eye, and I'm thinking about the beak and the feet. So we'll start off with the feet. And what I'm trying to do here is just try and use I've got a really nice sharp HB pencil, and I'm trying to get a sense of there's a bit of texture in the feet. If you can imagine what a bird's feet are like. It has these little talons that come down, little claws. So I really want that to be quite dark. The claws are pretty much going to be black. And the other parts are kind of puffy and a bit rounded. So we want them to have these little contour lines, these sort of rounded contour lines, but also be quite dark as well. Especially where they go up under the bird, they're going to be really dark. And then usually where the feet are sitting on the wood, there's a little bit of a shadow under there. So just kind of add a little bit of shadow. There you go, they're looking good. Now I just want to bring a few feathers in front here just to kind of disguise where the foot is coming up into this part of the bird. On the bottom, on this side, it's not really a problem because it's going to the other side of the bird. Cool. Right, let's move on to the beak. So with the beak, it's quite dark on the bottom. It's pretty much black actually. And the main thing is just to get nice contrast on the bottom of the beak. With the top, it's a little bit rounded. So we want to just get a bit of a sense of it being a little bit lighter on top and a bit darker on the bottom. But we definitely want to keep that definition of the bottom half of the beak in there. And we just want a nice kind of sharp end. Now there are just a few little whiskers that come out, so we'll just go like that. Just to add them, they're a nice little touch. Now the eye is the part of the picture that we really want to draw the viewer's eye into. And so we need to really have a good strong piece of contrast in there. So what we want to do here is we want to leave a little bit of the eye white and we want to have some of the eye black. Now if we look really closely at the picture, you can see that there is a little spot of white here and here, and those are the parts that show us that the eye is glassy and it needs some reflection. So what we'll do is we'll just decide on a couple of points. Usually it's kind of around the top, but I'll just do a little piece like that, and another little piece here. Okay, and I'll leave those white. And then I will work around the eye, trying to get a nice circle. And then I'm just going to go ahead and blacken the rest of it. Just using my sharp HB. The important thing is that the highlight has some contrast, so that it has black beside the white. And it's usually a little bit lighter just around the eye. You can sort of add a little bit of a ring, like that. And just like that, that finishes the eye. So when I look at this drawing now, I'm drawn into the eye, and I'm also, the other focus point is I think down here, where there's some really strong contrast between darks and lights, and there's some over here as well. So we're a little bit, moving around, but I think the eye is naturally the place where the viewer looks, and using the highlight just helps to really reinforce that viewpoint.